Alright guys, sa may end na lang. Magandang umaga po ulit sa lahat. Bakit lang po? Oo. Nagkakaproblema lang po at naglo-loading. Sandali lang po. Naglit lang po at talagang pinaparamdam sa atin ang internet. Ayan. Nakikita na po ba ang screen? Opo, blank pa. Blank. I-play na po, Ma'am Wen. Opo nga, piniplay ko kaso nag-ano siya. Okay. I can also... Yes, pinaparamdam po niya sa atin ang isa sa mga comments ng ating participants sa ating visa na nahirapan silang pumasok dahil sa internet connection kahapon. Ma'am Wen, lang po. Download ko na rin siya. O sige, kung meron ka po dahil siya ay nasa kabilang laptop ko. Opo. I-ano nyo muna po, mag-stop kayo, i-try ko siya. Hi, good morning. This is the recap of yesterday's event. So October 26, 2021 marked the commencement of the 4-day virtual training workshop on the utilization of learning activity sheets for the 6 regions in Mindanao, Region 9, 10, 11, 12, Cagaga, and Par, and for the Cordillera Autonomous Region from Luzon. There were about 500 participants. Host Ian Plata and Lindsay Sabo from DSP Score opened today's activity. The playing of the Philippine National Anthem was followed by a prayer led by Ms. Jo Bulapa. Dr. Risalina J. Villaneda, Chief of the Bureau of Learning Delivery, Teaching and Learning Division, warmly welcomed the participants and shared the objectives of the activity. Director Leila Ariola of BLD highlighted the importance of providing students with quality learning materials, the importance of their proper utilization in support of the self-learning modules, and together with the weekly home learning plan. She also gave us words of wisdom and a highlight from her speech yesterday is here. No matter how difficult the situation we're in, we have no other choice but to embrace the situation. There's also a need for us to ensure the effective utilization of learning materials are vested to ensure effective learning. All these support student learning and well-being. Mr. Matthew Smith, Acting Country Director and Director of Management and the Operations of Peace Corps, noted the journey that the learning activity sheets went through from its development last year to the rigorous quality assurance process. He also stated Peace Corps' commitment in supporting its partners through meaningful activities. And to quote him, Peace Corps continues to be supportive of DepEd's efforts to develop learning materials as Peace Corps recognizes the importance of access to quality learning materials, especially for schools in multi-grade settings, in reaching the goal of inclusive and quality education for all Filipino learners. Director Margarita Ballestero of the International Cooperation Office highlighted the importance of partnerships in moving towards quality education for all learners. She also reiterated the importance of quality learning materials such as the learning activity sheets. To quote her, DepEd has been actively engaging with our partners with the U.S. with focus on people-to-people exchanges, reskilling of teachers and upskilling of teachers and development of learning resources for learners. These partnerships are all anchored on this administration standpoint agenda and DepEd's sulong ito kalidad. Director Donald James Dawe of the Philippine National Volunteer Service Coordinating Agency highlighted the importance of working beyond what's required of us and commended the participants. From his speech yesterday, I quote, "This initiative of developing learning activity sheets will be a big help for the learners and multi-grade teachers. MG teachers are like volunteers who are beyond their official time." This was followed by the introduction of participants by Mr. Warren Quesada, the introduction of ICOMPs for participants by Ms. Rowena Bernal, and the introduction of BLD multi-grade team by Mr. Mr. Agwan. Mr. James Bunga discussed the program of activities, followed by the summary of participants' expectations that was presented by Ms. Carmencita Agwan. Ms. Rose Serrano then presented the updates on the multi-grade program. Mr. James Bunga, the national focal person for multi-grade program, conducted the first session, the development and utilization of learning activity sheets. He explained the development process and instructional design of LAS and discussed its content and features. Mr. Bunga noted that the learning activity sheets allows learners to engage learning tasks independently and critically reflect the progress of their learning with the guidance of a teacher, parent, or guardian. It teaches learners to give, interpret, and use feedback in their learning. The day ended with reminders for the next day. Now let's take a look at the summary of your feedback or reflection on yesterday's activity. On the question, what is your most significant learning in today's session on the development and utilization of learning activity sheets? Of course, the most significant learning focused on the LAS. Your responses covered various topics related to LAS, such as its design, the structure, the content, the utilization, and its monitoring. And then I quoted some of the responses, and here they are. Significant learning. The preparation of LAS should be based on CG competencies and should undergo quality assurance before it is utilized. My most significant learning is being informed on the whole process in developing learning activity sheets and the things to observe in utilizing the developed material. Learning activity sheets provide differentiated and learner-centered activities that will ensure pupils' active engagement in the learning process. LAS is in line with the most essential learning competencies, which will deepen and develop the understanding of the pupils of the various concepts. And then I would also give emphasis on the use of Bloom's taxonomy, which serves as our guide on the right level of activities that will be used or crafted in the learning activity sheets which will be given to the learners. And then, of course, the importance of planning and designing and preparing of learning activities. And then in the question, how can your learning help you as a trainer or teacher? The summary of your responses covered building capacity of others when you return to your site, pride in making activity sheets, improving your knowledge and skills, helping your learners, helping you with differentiation, with contextualization, with monitoring and supervision, and in improving teaching. And here are a few quotes. It will help me in designing or crafting multi-grade lesson plans and handling multi-grade classes. It will help motivate me to improve as a teacher. It will help me as a teacher to enhance the learning of my pupils through the use of LAS as support material, supplementary learning material. And then keep engaged with the positive attitude. Now on the question, how are you going to share it amidst the COVID-19 pandemic? Your responses said that you'll share it through virtual platforms, through social media, through orientation, through face-to-face, but in small numbers, and webinars, presentations, sharing it with your fellow teachers, roll out in the division, and then you also said the school learning action cell, and utilizing other platforms available. And then you rated the entire activity, the entire session as excellent with sprinkles of very good. Then you were also asked to rate the updates on the multi-grade program, and you also rated it as excellent with several very good. And then you were asked for other comments, and your words were full of gratitude and congratulations. So the words that came out mostly were, of course, thank you, congratulations, good job, well done, and of course, you all mentioned and thanked Sir James, and that the training was excellent session. The participants are good. Yeah, that's nice to include. And then the research persons are excellent. And then there were also some notes about the unstable internet connection, the difficulty getting in the virtual room, and there's a request for soft copies of the presentations and a request for printed copies of the LAS or funds to print the LAS. And that covers yesterday's event. Thank you and good luck.
Maraming salamat, Ma'am Moon, for the comprehensive recap of yesterday's event. So, welcome to the workshop session proper. We are the hosts for today. I'm Lynn Vista, and with me is Ian Plata. We are from the UST. Before we start, we would like to share with you the overview of Day2. So, our first session will be the presentation of LAS models for English, Science, Mathematics, Arabic and Lipunan, and Filipino. This will be followed by a presentation on the self-learning module. We have these are speakers who will talk about the rational basic parts and issues of SLMs as well as formative assessment. We will end the morning session by 12 noon and then we will resume by 1:30 p.m. Um, for our breakout sessions on recognizing the use of LAS vis-a-vis the SLM. So in our breakout sessions, we have the materials and the format in the Google Drive. So here is the link. We will also post it in the chat box so that you can download the materials before our breakout session. So after the breakout sessions, we will have presentation of group outreach followed by an open forum. So for our next session, we will call on Mr. George Rabe for the presentation of LAS model for English. Good morning, Sir George. Sir George is in the room. You can now share your screen, Sir George. Sir George is from Region 1, Division of Philosophy. Sir George, kindly unmute. Naka-mute po kayo.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning po.
You can now share your screen, Sir George.
Kita na po ba, ma'am?
Wala pa po, sir. Ayan, sir. We can see your screen now.
Okay po, ma'am.
Go ahead, sir.
To the top caliber members of the MG training team, headed by the workaholic and service-oriented, deputy officials from the BLD, PLD, to our international partners in realizing the Fed's mission and vision, the U.S. Peace Corps and the U.S.
Recording in progress.
To all MG advocates from the different FDOs for the Mindanao cluster, and to all in attendance, bigat kada kayuanin, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat, a wonderful morning to all. This morning, I am tasked to present a learning activity sheet in English 2, Quarter 1, Week 1. After a careful review of the learning activity plan by both the internal and external reviewers, making of learning activity sheet is the next step in the process. But before that, let me just give a short background of what the Learning Activity Plan, or LAP, is all about. The LAP contains the competency, topic, and skills to be developed with 3 differentiated activities. In this particular material, classify, categorize sounds heard, animals, mechanical, objects, musical instruments, environment, which is the most essential learning competency. Sounds around us is the topic, and the skill to be developed is classifying and categorizing sounds. Therefore, we were guided by our own LAP before we crafted our learning activity sheet. So I am now going to present the learning activity sheet, or the LAS. The LAS starts with a short discussion of what the topic or skill is all about, and examples are provided for better understanding. It should also be right and proper to note that in the discussion, indicate the importance why they have to learn that particular topic or skill. After that, the learners are now ready to do or perform the 3 differentiated activities. Activity 1, match and check it right. In here, the learners will match the picture with the sound below it. If it matches, simply put a check on the line before each number, but if not, simply put an X mark. Now, let's take a look at activity 1. For activity 2, the learners are given 2 tasks to perform. For the first task, the learners will identify if the given pictures make soft, low, or loud, high sounds. Then they will trace and cut the pictures and will place them in the proper column in the graphic organizer. Now, let's take a look at activity 2A. For the next task, the learners will perform a synonymous activity, but for this time, words are being used. Then again, a graphic organizer will be used. Now, let's have a look at activity 2, task C. And for activity 3, draw and make it right. The learners will complete the graphic organizer by drawing objects or animals, identifying the sound it produces and checking the correct column if the sound is loud, high, or soft, low. In here, the learner's answers or responses may vary, and 1 point will be given for every correct answer. Now, let's have a look at activity 3. As you can observe, the activities are increasing in complexity, from pictures to words to their own output. The use of graphic organizers is very much evident as well. After that, we now have the answer key. For activity 1, activity 2, and for activity 3. And I go ahead and say the answers or responses of the learners for activity 3 may vary. Moving on, let's now have the learning reflection sheet, which I think is another feature of the material that will make it distinct from other materials that have been developed. The learning reflection sheet, or LRS, starts with a note to the parents or guardian, indicating the rules so that their children will be able to give the necessary responses. Take note that there is a uniform LRS for grades 1 to 3, as well as another uniform LRS for grades 4 to 6. Now, the LRS has 2 parts, Reflections 1 and 2. Reflection 1 talks about the learner's performance in answering the activities. It is composed of 3 tables. Table 1 is the scoring guide. It contains the performance level, the point equivalent, and what it means. This will later serve as guide in filling in Table 2. Table 2 contains the learning outcomes and the description that states their learning performance. These learning outcomes are those that are expected to be mastered by the learner. This will derive from the skills or activities in the LAS. Although there is a uniform LRS for grades 1 to 3 and another for grades 4 to 6, this is the part that is similar to the LRS of other materials, meaning each LRS has different sets of learning outcomes. The total score can be computed by merely adding all the scores with 20 as the maximum. Table 3, the mastery level. This provides the interpretation of the learner's performance with suggestions of what a learner should do if he or she fell under a particular mastery level. Refer to the total score to get the mastery level. And for reflection 2, this will assess the satisfaction level of a learner after performing the activities. This is done by merely checking the face or the multiplier. So as you can observe po, the learning reflection sheet is child-friendly, considering that it is a step-by-step process. There are directions to follow in each part, and the parents or guardians are there to assist. So this is how we can interpret the learner's performance in the different activities of the desired mastery of classifying and categorizing sounds. Once again po, I'm Mr. George Rabet from the Schools Division of Ilocos Sur, Region 1, saying, despite of the situation we are into, learning is still fun for everyone. To smile and serve with a happy heart. Diyos tagninang kada kayo amin. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat po, Sir George, for the thorough presentation of the English LAS model. To present the LAS Science Model, let us welcome Ma'am Leia Gutera. My respective greetings to CAR and Mindanao participants, writers, multi-grade education program team, BLD team, UST SCORE, facilitators of this training, observers, and to all who are present in this platform, welcome to this virtual training workshop on the utilization of learning activity sheets. I am Teacher Leia Aguilar Gutera of Batad Central School, Schools Division of Iloilo, Region 6, Western Visayas. Today, I will be presenting my reviewed, validated, and edited learning activity sheets for the second quarter, week 7, day 1 of Science Grade 5. Before I proceed to the learning activity sheet presentation, let me first present how did this learning activity sheet come into this. So first, we were assigned to a specific topic from the most essential learning competency, and this must be anchored with our curriculum guide to a specific grade level area. After knowing the assigned MELF, we are expected to draft the learning activity plan matrix, which serves as our guide in writing the learning activity sheet. This lab matrix is composed of the following details: the MELF, the learning competency from the CG, the topic, the skills and processes to master, proposed formative assessment tasks, and instructional resources to be used. As soon as you are done crafting the lab matrix, you can now proceed to the crafting of the learning activity sheet. Please see to it that the lab matrix may have the congruency in terms of the MELF as well as formative assessment tasks if given. Out of the lab matrix I've made, this is now my reviewed, validated, and edited learning activity sheet. This is a learning activity sheet in Science 5, Quarter 2, Week 7, Day 1, with its most essential learning competency explain the need to protect and conserve estuaries and intertidal zones. At the start, please be reminded of the milk assigned if it needs to be unpacked or not. In this case, the most essential competency is a little bit heavier for the learners as well as for the teacher or learning facilitator. So instead of having only one activity sheet for the whole week, I decided to make three. This is for mastery as well as for facilitating learning in various forms of activities given to the learners. So this class is intended only for quarter 2, week 7 of day 1. At first, we have there the topic, estuaries and intertidal zones. Then we have there the kicker, protecting and conserving estuaries and intertidal zones. This kicker serves as the main topic of the lesson for this learning activity sheet. To commence, I have there a sort of overview of the topic by introducing what is intertidal zones and estuaries. To enhance the reading skills and metacognition skills of the learners, I presented two pictures depicting news about an estuary that shows a certain group of people who join in the mangrove planting in the nearby coastal areas of Batad, Iloilo. Another picture there shows the intertidal zones of Iloilo River banks and seas which happen to be affected by an oil spill. With these situations in the picture, it already shows that because of this activity and happenings, therefore, estuaries and intertidal zones are meant to be protected and conserved. This part of the learning activity sheet may already serve as a teaching portion or overview of the topic. I use these pictures and lessons overview to arouse the attentiveness of learners by connecting their prior knowledge to the previous lesson. To show that there is a transition of the activities, I prepared three differentiated activities for the learners to enhance their competency skills in explaining, enumerating, and creating, which may lead and let them master the skills of explaining, which belongs to a higher level in the development of learning, which is based on Bloom's taxonomy of learning. You are free to provide a title for every activity, provided it is relevant to the topic. So my first activity here is entitled Protect It or Not. The learners may write yes if the statement tells about protecting and conserving estuaries and intertidal zones, and they may write no if the statement does not tell and explain why if they answer no. So with this activity, the learners may have already the knowledge to explain whether the statement tells about protecting and conserving estuaries and intertidal zones by simply writing yes and providing the reasons if their answer is no. In giving the reasons, we can already tell that the learners are simply given a chance to provide their explanation why a certain statement does not tell that it conserves or protects the estuaries and intertidal zones. The second activity is entitled Seven Best Practices. The learners here will choose the seven best practices of protecting and conserving estuaries and intertidal zones by choosing from the given statement inside the box. This identified seven best practices by the learners will be written using a mind map. With this activity, learners are not only identifying the seven best practices, but then they are also enumerating as well as explaining through a mind map those seven best practices that could help protect and conserve estuaries and intertidal zones. So for the hierarchical development of learning, the third activity is provided. So here it is. This is entitled the Infographic Zone. In this activity, the learners will engage their interest in choosing certain pictures as well as a specific caption in making an infograph. Using this activity, learners will be given a chance to showcase their skills in illustrating one way of protecting and conserving an estuary or intertidal zone artistically. Aside from their artistic skills, they will also be given a chance to practice their grammatical skills by writing a caption based on the infographic they made with relevance to the given topic. So therefore, this artistic activity will not only explain their output through infographics, but the caption itself of their output will also tell that it explains ways on protecting and conserving estuaries and intertidal zones. So if you have noticed, the drawing out of every activity is always in connection with the given most essential learning competency and mended with specific skills congruent to the milk itself. So the next here is the answer key. For the answer key for activity 1, those numbers in which statement can be answered by no are provided with possible reasons or answers explaining why the statement does not protect the estuaries or the intertidal zones. And for activity 2, answers are already provided inside the box. The learners may just compose a mind map using their answers taken from the box. These answers explain best practices in conserving and protecting an estuaries and intertidal zone. And for activity 3, since the output of the learners may vary according to their artistic skills, the parents or guardians are requested to rate the output of their child using this scoring rubric. So if the learner may get a score between 5 to 6, he or she is good on his or her output. Fair for the scores between 3 and 4 if he or she got a score of 2. After accomplishing the three activities, the learners may now proceed in answering the learning reflection sheet. This learning reflection sheet is divided into reflection 1 and 2. For the reflection 1, it is composed of tables 1, 2, and 3. For table 1, this is the scoring guide. This scoring guide is used to guide in answering table 2, which is the learning outcomes. This reflection 1 for grades 4 to 6 are almost the same or have the same format. However, it may only vary in table 2, which is the learning outcomes. These learning outcomes may vary based on the competency skills provided in the various activities to the learner. These learning outcomes may answer whether the learners attain the specific skills in every activity provided for them. So, if we are going to reflect the learning outcome in this learning activity sheet, for learning outcome number 1, here is I can explain the need for protecting and conserving intertidal zones and estuaries. This learning outcome is found in activity 1. For learning outcome number 2, I can enumerate specific ways of protecting and conserving intertidal zones and estuaries. This competency skill is found in activities 1 and 2. And for learning outcome number 3, I can illustrate a way of protecting and conserving intertidal zones and estuaries. This learning outcome can be found in activity 3. And for learning outcomes numbers 4 and 5, I can practice ways of protecting and conserving the living things in the intertidal zones and estuaries, and I can participate in community programs on protecting and conserving intertidal zones and estuaries. These learning outcomes are found in activities 1 and 2. So after accomplishing table 2, the learners may now add his or her partial score to get the total score. As he got the total score, he or she may reflect on table 3, which is the table of mastery levels. In this table, the learner may know if he or she is very good, fair, and needs more effort on the most essential competency skills provided with differentiated activities. She or he may then proceed in answering reflection too. So the LRS provided needs a parental assistance because of the limited support of the teacher. So this may guide the learners to reflect on themselves in such a way the activity provided for them is suited or not. It may also challenge both teachers and learning facilitators as well as the learners to give extra effort to the activities provided. So that's all about this learning activity sheet for Science Grade 5, Quarter 2, Week 7, Day 1. It is said that it takes a village to educate a child. However, what will be our first step to take? As teachers, we pave the way of our learners' success. School isn't just for education anymore over the years. Education has become a homeschool team effort because of this COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, I can say that education is a shared responsibility. So that would be all. Again, I am Teacher Leia Aguilar Gutera of Batag Central School, Schools Division of Iloilo, Region 6, Western Visayas. Thank you and maayong adlaw.
Thank you, Teacher Leah, for a very detailed presentation on our LES model for science. To present the LES model for mathematics, may we call on Mr. Ian J. Arce from the Division of La Union in Region 1.
Good morning, Sir Ian.
Ma'am Carmen, para pong na-disconnect si Sir Ian.
Connect ko yata.
Okay po.
Sir Ian is also from Region 1, Division of La Union. It's giving him time to connect. It's connecting. At pagka andyan na daw siya, kindly admit po Sir Ian.
Hindi ko pa siya nakikita, ma.
Uh,
Ate Carmen, parang wala si Sir Ian ngayon sa mga nandito sa loob ng meeting.
papasok daw po siya.
Okay, ganito. Hindi muna si Sir Marvin pasok. Then after Sir Marvin, pwede natin tuwagin sa Ian ulit. Para
Are you in the room na po? Sir Marvin.
Good morning po. Okay lang din po.
Sir Marvin na muna. Kasi Sir,
Sir
si Ian.
po. Okay, we'll have to...
Sige po, thank you Sir James. So we will move to the presentation of LAS model for Araling Panlipunan. So let us all welcome Mr. Marvin Bolivar from the Division of Pampanga in Region 3.
Take it away, Sir Marvin.
Hello everyone. Okay, loud and clear po.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much Ma'am Carmen. Have a blessed day ahead with a smile on your faces, especially to all the participants coming from the Mindanao cluster. It is indeed a great privilege to present to you my learning activity sheet in Araling Panlipunan 3 for quarter 1, week 2. So this is a product of collaborative effort and intellectual engagement between my assigned reviewer and editor. Likewise, from constructive feedbacks from external reviewers during the national validation of LAS. My warmest felicitation and profound gratitude are extended also to all the individuals and organizations, especially to multi-grade teams spearheaded by Sir James Bunga, US Peace Corps, and United States Agency International Development behind the success of this activity. Without any further ado, allow me to present the learning activity sheet. The assigned most essential learning competency for this learning area is nasusuri ang kinalalagyan ng sariling rehiyon patay sa nakapaligid dito gamit ang mga pangunahing direksyon o primary direction. May papamalas ang kasanayang pagsisiyasat sa gawain ito. Hinugot naman ang paksang pagsusuri sa kinalalagyan ng mga lalawigan patay sa mga pangunahing direksyon mula sa MERP. Kilalanin natin ang nilalaman ng LAS. Nakapaloob sa talakayan, pagkibaba po ma'am, ang ilang mahalagang detalye na makakatulong bilang patnubay sa mga mag-aaral upang lubos silang maunawaan ang nilalaman ng MERP. Ito rin ang magsisilbing instrumento o gabay upang matukoy ang tamang direksyon kinabibilangan ng isang lalawigan o rehiyon batay sa ginamit na pananda. Ipinakilala dito ang iba't ibang rehiyong nabibilang sa bansa na siyang magbibigay daan sa mga mag-aaral upang magkaroon ng makabuluhang pagsusuri sa eksaktong kinalalagyan ng mga lalawigan o rehiyon. Next po, sa akibat ng mapa, so nariyan po ang mapa ng Pilipinas, may mga ibinahaging tanong na sasagutin ng mga mag-aaral upang matiyak ang kanilang pag-unawa sa ipinakitang mapa ng Pilipinas. Dito, masusubok ang kanilang kasanayan kung maayos na nasuri ang kinalalagyan ng mga rehiyon ayon sa reference point at pananda na ginamit sa ibang mga tanong. Next po. Inilahad na halimbawa ang mapa ng National Capital Region bilang karagdagang gawain upang lubos na maunawaan ang kasanayang pagkatuto sa araling ito. Gamit ang reference point na nakapaloob sa bawat bilang at ang panandang ginamit sa pagsusuri, matutukoy ng mga mag-aaral ang eksaktong kinalalagyan ng mga bayan o lalawigan sa National Capital Region. May patnubay na tanong sa ulihang bahagi upang magkaroon ng pagkakataong makapagnilay ang mga mag-aaral kung lubos nilang naunawaan o naisagawa ang mga pagsasanay na nakapaloob sa talakayan. Samantala, merong 3 gawain ang inihanda bilang pagsasanay na siyang huhubog sa kanilang kasanayan. Ito ay ang ating alamin para sa unang gawain, kilalanin natin para sa ikalawang gawain at gumuhit tayo para naman sa ikatlong gawain. Sa unang gawain, mabibigyan ng pagkakataon ng mga bata na suriin ang mga lalawigang makikita sa ikatlong rehiyon o Central Luzon. Kakibat nito ay mga pahayag na sasagutin ng mga mag-aaral gamit ang pananda o reference point upang matukoy ang hinihinging lalawigan sa bawat kita. Panariyan po ang ating unang gawain. Sa ikalawang gawain naman, binigyang pansin ang ika-6 na rehiyon o kanlurang Bisaya. Makikilala ng mga bata ang mga lalawigang nasa rehiyong ito. Sa ginawang pagsusuri sa mapa, matutukoy ang eksaktong direksyon ng mga lalawigan sa bawat bilang gamit ang pananda at reference point. Habang sa huling gawain naman, bibigyan ng pagkakataon ng mga bata na masuri ang kanilang sariling bayan o lungsod sa pamamagitan ng pagguhit ito na may kaangkupang pananda sa mga pangunahing direksyon. Ito ay nangangailangan ng gabay ng magulang o nakakatanda upang mabuo ang huling gawain. Sa susunod na bahagi, nakapaloob ang mga susi sa pag-uwasto sa 3 gawain. Nariyan ang mga sagot sa una at ikalawang gawain. Samantala, gamit ang checklist sa pagmamarka sa gawain 3, matutukoy ang angkop na marka sa iginuhit na mapa kung ito ba ay nagawa ng tama, naisulat ng tama ang pangalan ng mga lugar sa mapa at nailagay ang pananda ng mga pangunahing direksyon. Mahusay ang pagkakaguhit sa mapa kung ito ay may 5 hanggang 6 na puntos, 3 hanggang 4 para sa katamtaman at 2 puntos kung ito ay mahina. Sa refleksyong pagkatuto naman, ito ay katulad ng ibang asignatura sa pagkakalapat ng disenyo mula sa unang refleksyon hanggang sa ikalawang refleksyon. Sadyang naiiba lamang ang mga indicators sa pagkatuto na nakapaloob sa ikalawang talahanayan. Kilalanin natin ang nilalaman ng refleksyon sa pagkatuto. Ito ay may patnubay na pahayag para sa mga magulang upang magabayan ang mga mag-aaral sa pag-unawa sa mga tanong upang makapagbigay ng akmang sagot. Nariyan ang unang talahanayan na siyang magiging gabay sa pag-i-score mula sa antas ng pagkatuto kung ito ba ay katangi-tangi o mahusay, lubos na kasiya-siya o nangangailangan ng karagdagang pagsisikap sa pagsagot sa refleksyon. Sa bawat antas ng pagganap, nariyan ang angkop na kahulugan sa bawat puntos na makukuha ng mag-aaral sa pagsasagawa ng mga akbang para sa unang talahanayan. Samantala, sa ikalawang talahanayan, nakapaloob ang mga indicator sa pagkatuto. Katulad ng, naiisa ko ang mga pangunahing direksyon. Nasasabi ko ang kahalagahan ng pag-alam sa mga pangunahing direksyon. Natutukoy ko ang eksaktong nilalagyan ng mga lalawigan gamit ang pangunahing direksyon. Nailalarawan ko ng maayos ang kinalalagyan ng iba't ibang lalawigan sa rehiyon gamit ang mapa. At nasasabi ko ang direksyon na kinalalagyan ng iba't ibang bayan at lungsod sa rehiyong National Capital Region. Lalapatan ang bawat indicator sa pagkatuto kung ito ay katangi-tangi o mahusay, lubos na kasiya-siya o dagdagan pa ang pagsisikap sa pagsagot sa refleksyon. Samantala, sa ikatlong talahanayan, nakapaloob ang antas ng kasanayan o mastery na naglalaman ng kabuuang score. Antas ng kasanayan at mga dapat gawin. Ang mag-aaral ay katangi-tangi o mahusay kung ito ay nakakuha ng 16 hanggang 20 score. Lubos na kasiya-siya kung 11 hanggang 15 na kabuuang score. Samantala, nangangailangan ng karagdagang pagsisikap kung 1 hanggang 5 ang nakuwang kabuuang score. Kalakip nito ay mga pahayag na narapat gawin ng mag-aaral sa kanyang natamong kabuuang score. Para sa huling bahagi, ang ikalawang refleksyon ay naglalayong masuri ang mga bagay na natutunan sa aralin sa pamamagitan ng pagsagot sa tanong kung ano ang nararamdaman ng mag-aaral pagkatapos gawin ang mga aralin. Sa kanyang napiling sagot, lalapatan naman ang nakapaloob na pahayag sa ikalawang refleksyon tungkol sa kanyang nararamdaman. That's all for the learning activity sheet in Araling Panlipunan C, Quarter 1, Week 2. Again, thank you so much for paying attention and active listening. Keep safe, everyone. Once again, this is Sir Marvis Bolivar from Pamuning Elementary School, Schools Division of Pampanga. Maya payabak po at ingatan ng kasamo sana lagi ng mayupaya. Thank you so much po.
Thank you, Sir Marvin, for the clear and step-by-step presentation of Araling Panlipunan LAS model. To present the LAS model for mathematics, let us welcome Sir Ian J.R.C. from Region 1. Good morning, Sir Ian.
Good morning po. Sorry po. Nawala po ako kanina. Okay, a great morning to each and everyone, to the to DepEd Central Office, Bureau of Learning Delivery, Teaching Learning Division, the brilliant MG management team and focal persons, our very supportive partners, the USAID and USC Score, our internal and external reviewers, evaluators, our equally brilliant validators, fellow writers, to all the participants, and to all the MG advocates of Mindanao. A great morning to all of us. Isang mapagpalang umaga na imbag, abigat tayo. Amin, amin. So this
Ian, nawala po ang inyong audio.
the learning activity.
Ian, kindly unmute po. Sir Ian. Wala po kayong audio, Sir Ian. Sir, nakamute po kayo, Sir Ian. Kindly unmute, Sir Ian. We can't hear you po.
Hello po.
Sir, medyo malabo po ang inyong audio.
Clear na po ba? Hello po.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Opo, na-off po kayo when you
Sir, clear
attend
na.
NELC.
Okay po. So, once again, this is Teacher Ian of Sudipan District, Division of La Union Region 1, and I'm going to present the learning activity sheet with the LRS, or Learning Reflected Sheet, in Mathematics 5, Quarter 2, Week 6. So, our journey in crafting of the learning activity sheet started with the preparation of the learning activity plan matrix. So, the LAP, or the learning activity plan, was reviewed and approved. It served as a blueprint in the preparation of the learning activity sheet. It served as a guide for us in crafting the tiered and differentiated activities to ensure that there is alignment, consistency, and the activities will be varied that start from simple to more challenging activities that will lead to the mastery of the skills and processes to be developed based on the MELC given. So through the lab, I was able to check and connect with the MELC to the learning competency based on the curriculum guide to note if there are competencies being omitted or combined, and to check also if there are prerequisite skills needed in the attainment of the MELC given. So in this learning activity sheet, the MELC is very specific and there is no need to subtract. So the topic is established and the skills and processes to be developed are identified, like identifying, understanding, computing, writing equations, and of course solving or performing the indicated operations. So the skills and processes noted are the basis in the creation of specific learning activities that will lead to the mastery of the MELC. So this is now the learning activity sheet in Mathematics 5. So with the topic, the decimal, and of course the kickers, dividing whole numbers, we have the teaching part. The teaching part, in the teaching part, the learner are presented with division and two using the division sign in the illustration in vertical and in horizontal form. So this is for the learners to have a review on the different parts of a division equation, which is a prerequisite skills for them in answering different activities given. And for them to note that when the divisor is bigger than the dividend, the answer is in decimal form. So I provided an example to prove the concept presented using the step in dividing whole numbers with decimal quotient. So I step-by-step illustration or presentation is provided using the equation on top, which is 2 divided by 8 equals n. So as you can see on the screen, the steps are on the right and the illustration is on the left. So take a look at step 1. You cannot divide, it says you cannot divide 2 by 8 since 8 is bigger than 2. Just place a 0 as the quotient above, then multiply 0 by 8, then subtract. So as you can see in this illustration is number 1. And number 2, for number 2 step, to make division possible, place a decimal point after 2 and add 0. Then put a decimal point in the quotient right above or aligned with the decimal point in the dividend. As you can see in the illustration, there is being illustrated there as number 2. For step 3, so for step 3, they have to bring down the 0 in the dividend, as you can see the arrow. Then they have to perform the basic operation, just like in dividing whole numbers. So they have to divide, multiply, and subtract. And then they need to add another 0 if the dividend in the dividend, and repeat the process until the difference is 0. I chose to give terminating these decimals here because they will be having another set of activities for the terminating and non-terminating decimals in grade 6. So in step 4, they have to check whether their answer is correct or not. So to check, they have to multiply the quotient by the divisor, and if they were able to get the dividend, their answer is correct. So with the teaching part, for sure the learners have a complete review of the skills and process for them to answer the different activities. So finally, the last part of the teaching part invites the learners to proceed now in answering the activity for them to gain mastery of the skill. So for activity 1, the title is Complete Me. So the learners will just complete the long division solution by filling in the missing numbers. So for items 1 to 10, all they have to do is to complete the long division. Okay, so it starts with a simple activity. For activity 2, okay, for activity 2, it's entitled Figure Me Out. Why figure me out? There is a hidden figure in the box of shapes below. So they have to discover it by solving each item and shading the shape in the box which bears their answers. For example, in number 1, 9 divided by 45. So they are given 10 items here. In the box below, in the box of shapes below, they have to shade the shape that bears their answer. Okay. Yan. So in order for them to find out the figure, they have to answer items 1 to 10. They have to divide the whole number to decimal quotient. In number 1, for example, the answer there is 210. So they have to shade the shape with which bears 210. O, yung naka-sponsor ng cursor. Yun po siya. Okay? So, until they will reach item number 10. So that in order for them to find out what is the hidden figure. We will find out later what is the hidden figure. For activity 3, it is entitled Who Am I? Why Who Am I? Because they have to find out who is the father of mathematics. Since they have to answer the question. In order for them to answer the question, they have to follow the different directions. We have A, B, and C for activity 3. For letter A, they call for its quotient. But in activity, in letter A, or in this activity, they need their skill in writing division phrases into division equation or division expression in order for them to solve each item here. Okay? So after solving, after writing these number sentences to number equation, they have to cross out. Okay? For letter B, they have to cross out now the box which corresponds to their answer. For example, in number 1, the answer there is 225,000. So therefore, they have to cross out that box, and then get the letter, okay, below it, and write it on letter C, in order for them to find out who is the father of mathematics. So if the learners were able to answer all the items from 1 to 10 correctly, then they can finally find the final answer for the question, who is the father of mathematics, which is Archimedes. Okay, so the next part, we have now the answer C. So for the complete me, as you can see, the answers of the learners are the ones with box check, okay, the numbers which are box, and then for activity 2, let's try to find out if they were able to answer all the items correctly from items 1 to 10. They will be able to figure out what is the hidden figure. Okay, the hidden figure here is a star. Okay, and for activity 3, as I've told you earlier, they need the skill in writing division expression or division equations in order for them to have the correct number sentence for each item. Okay, so the final answer here is, in order for them to give who is the father of mathematics, we have here Archimedes. Okay, so as you can notice, or it can be noted, that from activity 1 to the last activity, the level of difficulty is increasing or becoming higher. And of course, as you can notice also, there's a twist in the activity 2 and activity 3 in order for the learners to be inside in continuing in continue to continue in answering the different activities. Okay, let's proceed now to the next part, which is the LRS, or the Learning Reflection Sheet, which is composed of two parts. The reflection one, which focus on the mastery of the skills or processes, and of course reflection two, which focus on the affective domain. Okay, so in reflection one, there are three tables with three directions, of course. For table one, this pertains to how the learners will rate themselves. Okay, so we have here the level with the points 4, 3, 2, 1. Of course, what it means. It says there. For table 2, we have the different learning outcomes. Okay, so for table 2, the learning outcomes are indicated based on the different activities given. For example, in number 1, I can identify the device or even